Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official Mock Draft 1.0, where I go through every single pick in the first round with several realistic trades. Let's get right into it. Starting off with the Chicago Bears and the number 1 overall pick. And guys, we have a trade. Just like we all suspect, the Chicago Bears will be trading out of the number 1 spot, and they will be trading with the Houston Texans, who inexplicably won that game, the last game of the regular season. It cost them the number 1 overall pick, but we will move up back to the number 1 overall pick, and the Houston Texans will be forced to give up 33 and 65 for the number 1 pick. Indianapolis, there's talks maybe they go to number 1. In this version of the mock draft, they're staying at number 4. We're going to go ahead and force this trade through. Houston gets number 1. Chicago moves down to 2. They get the first pick of the second round, and then they get a very early third round pick. So the Houston Texans have the number 1 overall pick, and ladies and gentlemen, with the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama. It's not surprising. Houston secures their franchise quarterback, and now the Chicago Bears, who traded back to number 2, they are on the clock. And guys, they're running to the podium. With the number 2 overall pick, the Chicago Bears select Will Anderson Jr., defensive end, Alabama University. So they get him. Not surprising at all there. I think Will Anderson is the most impactful defensive player. He's the best defensive player of the draft class. It's shocking to me that people think, Jalen Carter should be picked in front of him. At some point, the stats do have to matter. And even though Jalen Carter is an interior defensive lineman, and those guys tend to not put up a ton of stats, when you have 3 total sacks in your season, it's just not good enough. Will Anderson, you're talking about 17 sacks his sophomore season, 34 total tackles for loss, back-to-back Defensive College Football Player of the Year. Wow, what a get for Chicago. We're on to the number 3 overall pick. It is the Arizona Cardinals, who will keep the number 3 overall pick. They're not trading down. They're trying to go defense in terms of their head coach. And guys, we just have received word with the number 3 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Jalen Carter, defensive tackle, Georgia University. So not surprising there. Jalen Carter, he's an impactful defensive tackle. Personally, this is kind of similar to the Trayvon Walker thing. I was really against the Trayvon Walker pick last year. I didn't see enough production to warrant a top 5 pick, but this is kind of how the draft goes. And now Indianapolis is really liking what they're seeing with the number 4 overall pick, and you've got 2 quarterbacks here, Will Levis and CJ Stroud. And ladies and gentlemen, with the number 4 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select CJ Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State, who I think is actually the best quarterback in the draft class. He looks like Justin Herbert. He throws like Drew Brees, but a taller version of Drew Brees. That would be my pro comp for him. He is really good. And that would be, if you're Indianapolis, they might fall in love with Bryce Young. They might have to trade to number 1, but I do have them getting CJ Stroud there. Now we are on to the number 5 overall pick. And oh my goodness, we've just received an alert. We have a trade. And it is the Carolina Panthers moving into the number 5 overall spot, moving up from number 9 to number 5. They're giving up 39. They're giving up 61. And they're giving up a 3rd rounder in 2024. Wow, what an absolute blockbuster. They need a franchise quarterback. They've got DJ Moore. They've got Terrence Marshall. They also need a running back. But we know who they're going to take here. The Carolina Panthers move to number 5 overall. And with the 5th overall pick, The Carolina Panthers select Will Levis, QB, University of Kentucky. So guys, Will Levis, I think there's a lot of casual people who are kind of hating on Will Levis for no real reason at this point in the draft process other than, I mean, I guess you could say he didn't have great stats, but the comparison where people are saying he's the next Zach Wilson, he's nothing like Zach Wilson at all. It makes no sense. We are on to the Detroit Lions with the number 6 overall selection. They need defensive line help. They need linebacker help. They need cornerback help. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start rolling through this a little bit faster. I've got them taking Devin Witherspoon, who I think's an absolute stud. He's a shutdown corner. He's got ideal length, ideal size. He goes at number 6 overall, and that puts the Raiders on the clock. And here is a massive blockbuster trade that has been rumored. The Las Vegas Raiders will be acquiring the superstar veteran quarterback Aaron Rodgers for the number 7 pick, the number 38 pick, and a 2024 first-round pick. And Green Bay moves. They say we're rolling with Jordan Love. What an absolute crazy trade this is. And we do have the Green Bay Packers on the clock with the number 7 overall pick. And with that pick, they will be selecting Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame. They want to get their young quarterback Jordan Love some help. What a pick that is by Green Bay. They take Michael Mayer. Now we're on to the Atlanta Falcons, who, guys, I really can't sugarcoat it with the Atlanta Falcons. I think what they did last year was a complete just malpractice. Not playing Desmond Ridder enough to really know if he's good, enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. No, they basically lost a year, and they didn't even get a top 4 pick. So I have no clue what they were doing, but we will go ahead and give them Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, who I'm not very high on, but he's being mocked high, so we'll go with him. Now we do have Seattle at number 9, and I am going to give them Myles Murphy from Clemson, who is another edge rusher that didn't put up the best of stats, but I am going to go Myles Murphy to Seattle at number 9. Moving to Philadelphia, number 10. They need a receiver, they need a guard, and they need a center. I could really see them trading, and you know what? I think I'm going to have a team. How about the Washington Commanders trading from 16 to 10, and we know who they're going to take. Let's say they fall in love with, we're going to go ahead and force this trade. Can we please do this? Oh, it's glitched. Great. Force the trade. Washington trades up to number 10. They give up 47. They give up 97. I think Washington wins that trade, actually. Yeah, they didn't give up a ton, but they are going to be picking Anthony Richardson, the quarterback. So those are the top 10 picks right there, with 4 quarterbacks going inside the top 10. And now you have Tennessee, and this seems rather easy for Tennessee. I don't know what they do with Malik Willis, but if they stand pat at number 11, it comes down to Peter Skoronski versus Paris Johnson Jr., and I'm going to give the edge to Paris Johnson Jr. We're going to start rapid firing through this at number 12. You've got Houston. Houston's number 1 goal after they get Bryce Young, get him some help and get him the number 1 receiver in the draft. It's JSN going to Houston. On to the New York Jets at number 13. They apparently want a veteran quarterback. Maybe they get Derek Carr. Maybe they get someone else. In this case, they go best player available at a position of need, and they get Peter Skoronski, the tackle from Northwestern. Moving to number 14, and the New England Patriots, they need well, it says they need a quarterback, but I'm guessing they're just going to roll with Mac Jones again, a tackle, and then they also need edge help. For them, just looking at the edge players that are left remaining, okay, so this is interesting. I could see them falling in love with Nolan Smith, and I'm going to give them Nolan Smith. He's a really interesting story. The former number 1 overall recruit. He's been injured multiple times. If not for the injuries, he might be, he might have been a top 10 or a top 5 pick. Now we're back on to Green Bay. And guys, I'm going full offense with Green Bay, and I am going with Quentin Johnston. So now they have Michael Mayer, Quentin Johnston, and Christian Watson to really give them some serious help. On to Philadelphia. At number 16, they traded back. I'm guessing they go best player available, and they just take Brian Branch, the safety there. On to number 17. I love the fit for Pittsburgh with Joey Porter Jr., who I think is possibly the number 2 cornerback in the entire class behind Witherspoon. Now moving on to number 18, it's the Detroit Lions. And finally, we do see Brian Bresee come off the board. He's got some injury concerns. He didn't play great last year because he was limited by injury. That's another former number 1 overall recruit. Detroit goes best player available. They pick him at number 18. Moving to number 19, and you do have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do? Do they go and get Derek Carr? It's very unlikely with their current situation. Guys, I am going to give them Dalton Kincaid, who is an elite young tight end, possibly the best tight end in the entire class, at number 19. At number 20, moving to Seattle. With Seattle at this point, we will probably just go best player available and give them O'Cyrus Torrence. Position of need, they need a guard. And in my opinion, the best guard in the entire class, the best interior offensive lineman, O'Cyrus Torrence. At number 21, I love this fit, Jordan Addison to LA. He stays there, the USC, Southern California. Him and Justin Herbert. I love Jordan Addison. I think he's the number 2 receiver in this class, behind only JSN. Now we have Baltimore on the clock. They need a receiver, and we are going to give them a receiver. This is if they keep Lamar. They give Lamar a big contract. I have them picking Josh Downs to get him some serious help. Moving on to Minnesota. So Minnesota at 23. To me, it's very obvious. They're probably going to be picking a cornerback because cornerback is the deepest position. And I'm going to be giving them Emmanuel Forbes, who's kind of not very talked about. He's kind of molded, big, lengthy, after Sauce Gardner. That's kind of his profile. He's like a Sauce Gardner. Next, you do have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They need defensive back help, and I am going to go Christian Gonzalez, who does fall down the board a little bit. I am not a big believer in Christian Gonzalez personally. He really didn't do much in terms of the regular season at Oregon, and he's just kind of talked about, because of his measurables and stuff like that. I'm not the biggest fan of his. At 25, you have the New York Giants, who, we're going to take a look at the tight ends. They could go Luke Musgrave. You know what? I'm going to give them Luke Musgrave there, who was injured a lot of last year, but he is an athletic freak for a tight end, very similar to Dallas Goedert. That is his profile. At number 26, you do have the Dallas Cowboys, and with the Cowboys at this point, I am going to go with Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan's going to go a lot higher. A team like Buffalo should trade up to get him, but Dallas gets him at 26. They let Zeke go. He's a post, June 1st cut. They save a bunch of money, and that is the route that they end up going. On to the Buffalo Bills. We're going to go defensive back again for Buffalo. Well, honestly, Buffalo needs a running back so bad. We're going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm sorry. Jahmyr Gibbs is a beast. Running backs at this point at the end of the first round, you need to get a bell cow. James Cook is a third down back. He's a scat back. Give me Gibbs from Alabama, who's going to test insanely well. Now moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals, and I do think they go offensive line, and I do think they go with the tackle from Georgia, Broderick Jones, who's a solid tackle. We know they need a tackle really bad. We're going to have to see what they do with T. Higgins. In the meantime, on to New Orleans at 29. This is the pick they got for Sean Payton. And New Orleans is interesting. You know what? For New Orleans, I am going to go ahead and give them Tanner McKee, who is a quarterback from Stanford. and ranked kind of high, didn't put up great stats at Stanford, could be a Davis Mills 2.0, but New Orleans might have found their quarterback of the future. We will see. On to Kansas City at 30. Honestly, I'm really liking Zay Flowers in this spot. And the reason I like Zay Flowers, let's just look at the receivers available. Nathaniel Dell is another one that I could see moving up the board. I love him. So the thing with Kansas City, they're probably losing Juju Smith-Schuster. They're going to need a receiver. If you look at the defensive linemen, they could, you know what? They could take either of these guys. I'm going to give them Kancey. I really like Kalijah Kancey a lot. And then at 31, back to Philadelphia. We gave Philadelphia Brian Branch, so we will go. I wonder how that would fit with Zay Flowers. Who does Philadelphia need? A guard and a center. Yeah, there's a few guards that are actually pretty good that should be honestly ranked a lot higher than this, but they're not. Keon White is another player that I really like who's probably going to be a first rounder. J.L. Skinner is another player, a safety. But we will go ahead and we will give them Zay Flowers at 31. So that is the official mock draft with several trades inside of the top 10. We're going to just take a look at it one more time. You've got Bryce Young going number 1 overall in a trade, going from 2 to 1. Will Anderson goes, the first defensive player selected. Jalen Carter goes at 3. C.J. Stroud at 4. You've got Carolina trading up to number 5. Witherspoon, the cornerback, going to Detroit at number 6. You have Green Bay trading away Aaron Rodgers to the Vegas Raiders and drafting Michael Mayer at number 7. Tyree Wilson goes at number 8. Myles Murphy at 9. Anthony Richardson going to the Commanders in a trade-up at number 10. You've got Tennessee going with Paris Johnson Jr. JSN goes with Bryce Young to Houston. Peter Saransky goes to the Jets. They just draft best player available. Bill Belichick takes a chance on Nolan Smith, the edge rusher. The Green Bay Packers get another offensive weapon to try and help Jordan Love out. Brian Branch goes to Philadelphia. Best player available type pick. You have Joey Porter Jr. going to Pittsburgh. Really good cornerback shutdown. Brian Bresee goes to Detroit. So Detroit really loads up on defense here. Dalton Kincaid goes to the Bucks. Torrance goes to Seattle. Now they've got Charles Cross and Torrance, 2 talented offensive linemen. Jordan Addison goes to the Chargers to give Justin Herbert some offensive help. Lamar Jackson gets some help with Josh Downs. Emmanuel Forbes, the long, lengthy quarterback, goes to Minnesota. Christian Gonzalez goes to Jacksonville in a best player available type pick. The Giants pick Luke Musgrave to get Daniel Jones, a good pass catcher, although they certainly could go with Zay Flowers in that spot, or Nathaniel Dell. Bijan Robinson goes to Dallas. There's questions with Tony Pollard. Are they going to re-sign him? Zeke Elliott, he's getting paid a ton of money. Gibbs goes to Buffalo. They finally get their number 1 running back. Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle, goes to Cincinnati. They've had offensive line issues. Jonah Williams gave up the most sacks out of anyone. They need serious help. Tanner McKee, the quarterback, goes to New Orleans. Maybe they have him sit for a year or sit for a few games before possibly hoping he is their franchise quarterback. Kalijah Kancey goes at 30 to Kansas City. I could also see them taking Zay Flowers with the receivers they're going to lose in free agency, and then Zay Flowers goes to Philadelphia. So Philadelphia picks Zay Flowers and Brian Branch, and I think they also got another second-round pick because they traded from 10 to 16 with the Commanders. So that is my official mock draft version 1.0, guys. That's going to do it for this video.